Hi everyone, Rachel Jensen here. Today we're going to talk about finding the perfect long-term rental in Belize. Going to cover some considerations for you to think about as you're looking for the perfect rental. At Luna, we're not currently doing or offering long-term rentals. However, I'm always happy to talk to you about this topic and then refer you to the right people. So with that, let's get started. So over the next, I'd say it'll be about 20, 30 minutes. We're going to talk about rental must-knows, go through the top 5 considerations, and then I'll give you a couple of examples of rentals that are available. They were available when I put together this presentation. They may not be available right now, but just to give you a concept and idea of what's out there and what you can get for your dollar. Now, if at any point you want to jump through, feel free to do so during this. If you have any questions specifically, feel free to reach out to me there, info at Luna Realty Belize. You can see it there at the bottom left part of the screen. I think it's a little bit covered right now, but that would be the best email address to get to me. All right, so I do want to talk about some must-knows, and this is true for anybody who's not a resident of Belize. So if you don't have any status here, if you're here on a tourist visa, this applies to you. First and foremost, long-term rental is defined as 6 months or more. Now, this is not written in law anywhere. It's just the standard. When people are talking about long-term rentals, they typically mean for a minimum of 6 months. Note that if you're not a resident, you will pay an additional 9% hotel tax. That's typically not included in the monthly rate that you see there on the screen. So do make sure that you are keeping that in your budget as you're putting your numbers together. At number 3 here, and please remember this is November through May, is considered high season. During this time, you are going to be paying more for a rental. Now, keep this in mind. If you are somebody who owns a condo here, you know this is peak season. You can put your condo in the vacation rental market, charge $200 a night. You're likely going to be doing that versus having a long-term renter who's paying maybe $1,200 or $1,500 a night. The math really adds up more for long-term rental or for nightly rentals rather. So it's fairly difficult to find great rates. Now, it's not impossible. There is always going to be a market for long-term rentals, but know that it's going to take a little bit of digging to get that out. In addition to that, for long-term renters, you're typically paying the utilities, water, internet, electricity, cable, those sort of basics. Now, there may be more, there may be less that's included with that, but it's always important that you ask the rental management company. Also, in some agreements, I've seen that it is the long-term renter who's actually setting up the cable and internet. So that may be another process for you to have to unwind through. And in some cases, and maybe it's included in the HOA or the owner already has it ready for the renter. So things for you to bear in mind as you're going through the rental process. In addition to that, information online isn't always accurate. So it's not going to be impossible. It's not going to be impossible to find a rental property through online. However, it is going to take a lot of sleuthing. I reference living here in Belize being like on a treasure hunt all the time. You're constantly scouting out information, looking for details because it may not always be accurate in the one spot that you are looking. So jumping into our top 5 considerations, where do you want to be? This is such a personal question that some people say, well, where should I rent in Belize? Where's the best place to go as an expat? Every place has pros and cons, and it really just depends on what you're looking for. Where do you want to be? Do you want to be by water? Is it important that it's the Caribbean? Do you want to be by a river, right? Maybe you're an avid diver or snorkeler, so you probably want to be where there's close access to diving. Or do you want to be in the jungle scape? Some people prefer to wake up to howler monkeys in the distance in the morning and have that be the environment that they're in. Also, do you need to be beachfront? When you're on the Keys, specifically Ambergris Key, Key Cocker, rental prices are going to be substantially higher for being beachfront than if you're just a block or 2 off a beach. And I'm going to go through some examples with you towards the end of the presentation here to see what it would be like if you were beachfront versus if you were just a couple blocks off beach. Also, where do you want to be in relation to the stores, right? Do you need to be close? Are you going to have a car? Will you need a vehicle? If you need a vehicle, are you able to get one, right? Here in Belize, it's fairly difficult, especially on the island, to buy a golf cart if you are not a resident. So you will have to consider long-term renting. Is that in your budget? Long-term rentals during high season can be about $650 a month. So things for you to bear in mind as you're putting together the budget. Also, do you want to be near other expats or do you want to be around locals? I get this quite a bit. Folks are saying, no, I want to be where the locals live, or I don't want to be around too many expats. And so if you truly do want to be where the locals live, please bear in mind that there may not be hot water, there may not be air conditioning, you may have a lot of dogs barking in the background. These are the sort of factors that are really important for you as you're going through the rental process. Also, how much space do you need? At the end of the day, who's going to be there with you? Do you need to work from home? If you are going to work from home, do you need to have your own office? Will you need to house visiting guests? I think a lot of times when people are coming to Belize, they really are hoping that their friends and family and everyone's going to be visiting. This may or may not be the case. I've had people here who purchased or rented with the intent of having these family members and people come down, but they haven't, or maybe they had more people come down and realize sometimes it's easier to put them in their own space. So are you going to need extra space? So you need that third bedroom or that fourth bedrooms, or maybe not even, maybe just go for the one bedroom. And then remember, are you considering everyone in the family? It's important if you do have dogs or cats to remember the fur babies. Not all properties are going to be pet friendly, and they're not all going to be kid friendly either, right? So you need to remember to ask those sort of questions as you are going through the rental process. Also, what is the max number of people that this rental can accommodate? Maybe they do have a pull-out couch. Maybe they only allow up to 2 people there. Maybe they only allow, 1 dog or 2 dogs, or maybe they don't allow male dogs or, larger dogs. So a lot of these things are really going to be important as you're going through that process. Number 4 is, what are the logistics? This is a picture from my friend's golf cart as we were moving her out of her rental into another rental. She was here on a month to month, and so she was always moving in and out. And so I think we're able to get everything in that cart, but it's not uncommon to see like mattresses on the top of golf carts. I think that's always funny and entertaining to see. But that's also something to bear in mind. Is it furnished, or do I need to bring furniture? Most long-term rental places are furnished. You're not going to be shipping down furniture or having to buy things. In some cases, appliances are included, and other times they're not. So that's important for you to know too. Also, how are you going to pay? So I know for my long-term rental that they do not take US dollar. They'll take, actually like cash, but they will take Belize dollar cash, and they will take credit card that they'll convert into Belize dollar, especially if it is a US credit card. They also don't take online bank transfers from a Belize account. So, find ways to make it work. But if you only have access to US dollars, you're going to have to figure out if they do take credit card, or if there's somewhere that you can take money out of the ATM and pay cash. So a few factors there when it comes to the logistics. Also, I mentioned this before, but do you have to set up the internet? It's not impossible to do it. It just takes a little bit of patience, because sometimes they don't always show up when they say they're going to show up. And then last but not least, there is, how do I pay utilities? And actually, it's quite convenient here on Ambergris Caye. A lot of the utilities are able to be paid online. So as long as you have even a US credit card, or your bank that you're currently banking with allows for international transactions, then you're able to pay the utilities. But I know some people do prefer to go to the actual pay station and pay cash there. Again, a lot to consider when you are looking at the logistics. Not impossible, just good though to set your expectations. Also, realistically, what's your budget? I know a lot of times this is like a taboo question and people don't necessarily want to share what their actual budget is, but you really have to be realistic at the end of the day in knowing what your numbers are. What is your rent going to be? Estimate utilities. You're going to keep AC on all the time. And if you are, AC tends to be expensive. Do you need a vehicle? We talked about that long-term golf cart rental. Are you going to try to buy a vehicle? What does that look like? Right. And that typically, again, buying a vehicle is very, very difficult to do if you're not a resident. All right, now where to find the long-term rentals? This is a question that comes up a lot. And Facebook is probably one of the biggest marketplaces in order to find long-term rentals. Now, you can go on the expat pages. They have the marketplace. They have buy and sell. If you don't have a Facebook page, you can create a dummy one, and you can get access to these groups to be able to see it. You can also do a Google search, but many of the rental management company pages are not updated. Some of them do a really great job with it, but many others do not. So if you do see a property you like, just reach out to them directly, see if it's available for the time that you're considering. Airbnb and Vacasa. And so typically with these properties that are on Airbnb and Vacasa, they are on a nightly basis. However, if you reach out to the owners directly, they typically are willing to negotiate a little bit more if you're willing to spend, and typically spend a little bit more. They're not necessarily going to cut their rates down to 10% of a vacation rental, but it may be possible to find that midterm, right? It's fairly difficult in Belize to find that midterm, that 1 to 5 month time, since long-term is considered 6 months or more. So you might have to do a little bit more homework there, but do note that it's not impossible. It just takes a little bit more patience, and you may not find that perfect rental right away. And that's okay. You know, sometimes I found people come down, they're going to get what they're going to get for the first 6 months or 3 months or whatever their agreement allows them to. And then during that time, they're searching out for other rentals while they're here. So just something else to keep in mind. It doesn't have to be your forever rental. You can move from place to place. So here are a couple of examples of rentals here on Ambergris Caye. Now, this property specifically is a one bed, one bath. It's going for $1,200 a month. It is furnished, as you can see there from the decor. It even has some nice wicker furniture outside so you can enjoy the Caribbean views. And in this community, this is a community of primarily long-term rentals and people who live here full-time. It's not a vacation rental place. So you're not going to have the people that are coming in and out on that nightly vacation. And this is important because a lot of places don't have that distinction. They are going to be, you know, both nightly rental and long-term rental, and the owners who are there full-time. So this one's located about 7 minutes south of the downtown area via golf cart. If you're walking, it's probably about a 25-minute walk into town, depending on your speed. You can take the beach, you can ride up on the sidewalk, however it is you prefer. But this one is a 6-month minimum there. And do note some places are going to mention that if you don't have a legal status here, you're not a resident or a citizen or on your QRP, you may not be able to long-term rent. And in that case, you know, I would advise you to keep looking and just keep doing your homework. Don't get too frustrated because there will be a place that you can find, but do note some have certain restrictions. On Ambergris Caye, here are a few property management companies that I recommend that you reach out to. Belize Vacation Rentals, Vacasa, Key Management, Crown Management, all of these have a great reputation here on the island. This is for Ambergris Caye specifically. And through these, you can find perhaps that rental that's right for you. Again, depending on what time of year you're going to be here, it may be fairly difficult if you're not doing your research well in advance. I have people who reach out like a week or two before they're coming down, and they're coming down like December, and it's just very, very difficult for them to find something. They may end up in a hostel for a week or two as they're scouting out their options, which isn't a bad idea either, right? You don't always have to do it right away, but it's definitely advisable if you're going to be here during high season. So here's an example of a property that's located a few blocks off beach. They do have water views, canal views, and it's a studio, so not that true one bedroom. It's about 350 square feet, and this is going for about $495 a month. This is a really popular complex for long-term renters. There's a great community vibe there. It's about 10 units in total, so smaller, but it comes, as you can see, with very basic furniture. So the other condo that you saw is more furnished, right? So I'd say this one's probably semi-furnished, where you want to add some of your own features to it to really make it feel like home. This one is not Caribbean front. It's located a few blocks from that property we just looked at, the Royal Palm property, but it does have that water view, which is the canal. And this one is a 6-month minimum as well. And again, it might say on the website 6-month minimum, but if you're only going to be here for a few months, reach out and see what they say. You know, the worst they say is no, and then you just continue on. All right, next example here is in Placencia. This is a 1 bed, 1 bath. This is going for about $600 a month. This one has super, super basic furniture, has that canal view. It has an AC, and I mentioned that on here because it is something you have to remember. The other two properties do have the ACs as well, but when you're finding something that may look a little bit more local, they may not necessarily have the AC component to it. So again, important for you to jot down. A company that I would recommend in Placencia is called Flowers Vacation Rental. This is probably the only one that's responded to me. So if there are other people who are listening to this who have rental management companies and I didn't reach out to you, but you have great service anyway, feel free to reach out. Would love to dig a little bit deeper and chat with you about the options that you have and what your services look like. So here's another example. This is a 2 bed, 1 bath, also in Placencia. This one you really need a car in order to get here, but it's about $1,500 a month. Again, that basic furniture you can see from the interior, it has, you know, essentially what you need, but note that there's no male dogs. Cats are actually okay, probably male or female, no children and no smokers. So this is a lot stricter when it comes to the parameters of what they would look for in a renter. Also note all of the services that are available, water, Wi-Fi, cable, trash included, all of those features are included, whereas they may not be included in the property that we looked at before. This one is Caribbean front. It's on a really beautiful piece of acreage. So, you know, you have a lot more space than if you're in a condo. And again, Flowers Vacation Rental is the one I would suggest. Now, we breeze through that really quickly, but I just want to let you know that, you know, really, it's really hard to find that perfect place. I would try to come into Belize without an incredibly high sense of expectations. and just take a step back and breathe and just be happy that you're really here in this beautiful country. And do reach out and request the rental checklist at info at Luna Realty Belize. I'd be happy to get that information over to you to really make sure that you're asking the right questions and digging into the specifics and things that you may not realize are questions that you even need to ask. Like, does it have hot water, or is there AC, or do I need to bring my own frying pans, or is that included? How many utensils come in, especially if you are going to have a larger family, 3, 4, 5 people, you want to make sure there's enough there. Does it come with dish towels, or do I have to supply those? So a lot of different things to keep in the back of your mind, but it doesn't have to be stressful at all. I would say just take it one step at a time. Feel free to reach out. Again, I'm happy to introduce you to the right people. At this point, we are not doing long-term or property management, but again, happy to introduce you to the people so that you can find the right place for you. All right, everybody, have a fantastic rest of your day, and I look forward to hearing from you at some point. Bye, everyone.